All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm coming at you about 3 minutes after 3. I just want to take one moment and make sure that we've got good audio going on. And I see somebody has logged on. If I can get a thumbs up if you guys can hear me, or a smiley face, or any sort of happy emoji if you can hear me, that would be wonderful for the two of you who are watching. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me and my microphone. Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 567 Center's virtual tour for the month of October. We are thrilled to get to open up the show Return to Origin. This is a 4-part group collaboration show featuring artists Barbara Odil, Chris Novi, Johnny Mollica, and Michael Pierce. This is actually a kind of continuation show from a show that we hosted last October in 2020. And we had a wonderful exhibit with them. I think if you guys remember that exhibit, you will be incredibly thrilled to see the brand new work that they have come out with for this new year. And of course, with the title Return to Origin, they are playing with themes of taking their artwork back to kind of what originated them as artists. So as we go through the gallery today, I'll kind of point out, where their original ideas or original pieces or original thoughts and work come into play, and how they've used that to kind of advance their own artistic techniques and move into new series that you see today as well as last year. So without further ado, let's jump on in. We're going to start over here like I usually do on our first wall. And this is a piece by Johnny Mollica. This is an acrylic painting. This is on canvas and in a beautiful frame. And of course, this is of Robert Lee Coleman, an incredibly talented musician and highly respected and well-known guitarist here in Macon. Certainly a historic figure. And I love Johnny's work. As you can see, Johnny tends to use a very heavy impasto technique. So he really does not shy away from building up his paint and pigment on the canvas. So a wonderful new piece here from Johnny. And I will say, even though we have the same 4 artists showcasing this year, all of the work that is in is all brand new and created within the last year, except for a piece or 2. So we're going to come on in over here to Michael Pierce. And if you guys remember the show last year, you'll remember that Michael had some massive tapestries in. So size-wise, this is incredibly different for him, working on a smaller scale. As always, I apologize for the glare from the glass in the frames. I certainly encourage you guys to come on down to the 567. We are open Monday through Friday, 11 to 4, and this show will be running for the entire month of October. So please come on down, because the work always looks different in person. But these are mixed media pieces. He uses torn paper and cut stenciled paper, and a lot of this is so brand new, in fact, that Michael Pierce and Johnny Moe, they both participated in a folk art show that Johnny Moe set up over at Grant's Lounge last week. And Michael has constructed these all since that period. They ended up having a spaghetti night on their final night. And so you might see here in some of this, but you can actually see the lines of dried spaghetti that Michael used to help give some definition and variance in this piece. And you'll see that running throughout this whole series. All right, now we're going to shift on over into our first Barbara piece of the day. This is a brand new work by Barbara called Visionary. Barbara is a master found object artist. She takes natural materials that she collects all over the United States and then assembles them into usually figures and forms of human or sometimes godlike creatures. So a really unique piece, and we've got a lot more coming up for you. All right, I'm going to continue on now into a couple more of Michael Pierce's works. And these works definitely, you know, though these are his newest pieces, they certainly pull back to his origins. Michael is a kind of master at using line, shape, and form to really construct a composition. Of course, a lot of these have massive amounts of color too, which is really fun and gives it a great gradient as you move your eye throughout the piece. But as you can see, like in this upper portion here with this yellow paperwork, you know, he's got multiple layers of paper built up on top of each other and then came back in over top with the spray paint and used that to kind of give it some dynamics over the very solid pigmentation of the paper. And here using a little bit more stencil work to get those black circles in there running through the center. But some really great pieces, incredibly dynamic and colorful. All right, moving on to another Barbara piece here. This is a sculpture of wood. Here, let me get a better angle of it. This is a wood sculpture on like a fossilized stone. And again, as always, especially with sculptural pieces, much easier to come in and view them in the round as they deserve to be viewed. So please do pop on down and come check them out. This piece is an incredibly dynamic piece. However, it's very dark on the camera, I see, so it's very hard to see a little bit of the definition that runs through this. But this is a found object sculpture made of wood and fossilized stone. As you can see, as I rotate the camera, you know, Barbara finds these incredibly dynamic pieces of material and then finds the form within them and uses that to construct the actual composition of what the piece demands. All right, and then we're going to bounce on over here again into a few more Michael pieces. And actually, since we have kind of gone through his construction of these pieces, I want to pull back a little bit to show you these alongside Barbara's newest sculpture, because I just think color-wise, these pieces work so well together, and this new sculpture is just out of this world here. So let me zoom in a little bit on this guy here. So this is made from a palmetto tree root, along with multiple mixed media pieces, including feathers to give it this dynamic headdress around the head here. A very tall sculpture. Let me pull back and give you guys another vantage point of this. Coming around to the side here, you can really see the kind of almost bug-like characteristic that this palmetto tree root was able to put in here. And then, of course, the shadow cast behind it. You know, Barbara likes to play a lot with not just her figures, but also the shadows that they cast on the wall. And I have a wonderful example coming up around the corner here. But isn't this just such a spectacular piece? And I just thought playing with the colors that Michael had used specifically in these two just works so well with this piece. You've got these vibrant yellow swashes that match the vibrant feathers of the headdress and mixed in with these blues, greens, and reds. It's a very unique piece from Barbara. And that's saying a lot because Barbara always has unique pieces. All right, we'll continue on our tour. I'll show you guys these two Michael Pierce paintings over here, again using still the same designs of multimedia paper and spray paint. And this is a much darker form. Sorry, I've got my reflection in here. But you can see this one has very little colored paper, actually almost none at all. So this is still a paper piece, but Michael decided to play much heavier with his stenciling and his color usage from the spray paint on this piece, but still using the spaghetti in here to get those really thin spider web-like lines. And hello, everybody. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in this afternoon. We always appreciate your support. And of course, come on down tonight if you're around and available from 6 to 9. We will be doing the opening for this exhibit. So if you guys would like to come and check them out and talk with the artists, they will all be here from 6 to 9 tonight. All right, moving on to another Barbara piece here. This is called the Sentinel. And this shows you how she can find an incredibly simplistic piece of natural object and put them together to create a really, really intense and dynamic sculpture. And so she's able to pull this bird form out with just the way that she mounted this piece of wood on this stone. And I love this tall, tall stone holding up this in-flight bird, or maybe bird about to jump into flight. Again, with her pieces being that they are natural objects, the lighting in here is very challenging to really showcase exactly, the grain of the wood, the texture of the stone. Everything very much deserves to be viewed in person, especially with Barbara's sculptures. All right, moving on into another series of Michael Pierce's. Now, these we're starting to move away from just his more modern and uber contemporary works into some works that are a little bit older that he has kind of taken back out and played with a bit. And we've got another couple of examples of those coming around the corner as well. But this is all stitched paper, so it's woven and stitched paper. So of course the piece reads incredibly different the further and closer you get up to it, because these stitching line works really add this crazy fluid dynamic through the entirety of the piece. And much more subtle on his color uses in these pieces. But I love the woven paper. Gives it a very solid grounding into the block forms that it's using. And then, of course, to take these stitches and put in all of these crazy wiggly lines just forces your eye all over the piece, which is something that Michael is certainly masterful at, is constructing a composition that forces your eye to not linger on any one area, but to move all about the composition, usually folding back in on itself and moving you to a new point from a similar vantage point from your previous entry, which are very cool. All right, and then another Barbara piece here. I love this piece. It's got this beautiful found object natural material that I am not 100% sure what it is. I think it is whelk casings. So I do believe that these were pulled from the coastline, or maybe even from the ocean itself. But she uses these to kind of add this lace-like texture into the body of this individual, give it some clothing and kind of this almost headdress or, incredibly regal, lacy clothing-like texture and feeling to the whole piece. And of course, this is another one that very much plays with the lighting that is on it. As you can see, it casts this beautiful shadow on the wall here, just bleeding that texture off of the piece and into the background behind it. All right, and onward into another couple of Michaels here. This is kind of continuation from the series we were just looking at on the other side of Barbara's work. but this time with his stitch work here in the foreground being much more gridded to kind of match his grid of the woven the woven paper in the background. This one has a lot more color in it, though it's still subtle. I mean, it's definitely much more vibrant than the other two pieces, and partly that's just due to how he decided to overlap his woven paper with his textured paper in the backgrounds. But these pieces are a lot of fun to come and stare at in person. You can get lost in a single piece for quite a long time. And again, for anyone watching right now, I apologize for the glare. All of these works are fronted with glass, so I'm getting some light glare from behind me here in the gallery. All right, now we're going to shift on over to our other wall here, and I'd like to show you guys, let me first give you just a full display of this wall and what we're looking at over here. All right, so this is how I have this wall set up, and I did do this relatively deliberately. This wall showcases 3 brand new Michael Pierce sculptures, 3 incredibly older works by Michael on paper, and then 1 brand new piece by Barbara up above that is hanging from the ceiling. And I'd kind of like to start with that piece first, just because, as you guys can see, look at the shadow play here. I mean, she's constructed this piece that when the shadow hits the wall, looks like a swimmer swimming through the water almost perfectly, with her arms up over her head like she's in the middle of a breaststroke. But then you look at the piece, and I mean, of course, the piece is also reminiscent of that, but it is completely different. You know, it has a very different feel, especially with this palm tail here. So still, you know, has a lot of dynamic motion, but I just absolutely love the difference between the actual sculpture and the shadow that it casts on the wall. It is expert work. All right, now back down to Michael Pierce. So I did put these guys together very deliberately because I wanted to showcase his newest sculpture work with some of his oldest paperwork. So we've got these 3 sculptures here, which I really love that he included and created for this show. Because again, with the title Return to Origin, I think these pieces speak both for Michael, but also for kind of the theme of the show, especially in the way that he's taken these. These are old aerated concrete blocks, and he has golden gilded them and found just these, you know, natural blocks here that have their own shape and dynamic as they are, and he golden gilded them. I feel like this really kind of showcases the idea of the ancient versus the modern, and kind of almost in a piece takes you back to the beginning, to the origin, you know, with that ancient feeling about them. But then, of course, being that they're some of his newest works, as far as the blocks go, but they sit on a palette or a composition really that were wall mountable pieces at one point that were much older works for Michael. So he's literally gone back into his archives and he's gone back to his origin and he's found the things that he did, and then he's taken that old idea and mixed it with this brand new idea. And for any of you who saw the show or know Michael's work, he is a master at golden gilding. He loves to use all of these different metallic gilding papers. And last year when we had him in the gallery, we had him with a bunch of gourds that he had grown and gilded and painted, and they were stunning. We have one of those back in a totally different iteration this time around. But I really liked the fact that he took these raw materials and gave them this brand new life, took his old work and mixed it with his brand new work. And they're just very, very interesting sculptural pieces. All right, and then of course that goes into these pieces here, which are mixed media, stitched paper pieces as well. But he told me that these were works that he had from years ago that he's had sitting in a portfolio. And he figured, this would be a great time to kind of replay around with them, put them in a new frame, and give them a new life alongside his brand new series. And I very much like these works. So a really fun combination of media and materials from two different artists right here. All right, now we're going to jump on over into a basically full Barbara section. And so, again, Barbara has a ton of different found object materials. Then she uses them in vastly different ways. And I think this gives you a really good showcased example of all the different ways that Barbara's able to take a very simple piece of found material and then find the form and find kind of the figure that hides within it. She'll carve them down in some areas. She'll leave them completely raw and rustic in others. So let's zoom in here a little bit. I'll show you guys a couple of these. So there we go. In the center here, we've got the Ostrich. This is the only piece in the show from Barbara that we've had in a previous exhibit. And of course, we've got the Ostrich right here next to Repose. I think this might be one of my favorite pieces in the exhibit this time around. It's incredibly simple, but I just love it. It reminds me almost of the genie from Aladdin. With that long tail. And then we've got this piece right next door to it, which is one of Barbara's newest pieces. She just finished this one up the other day, and it's so new that she did not even get me a title for it yet. So I am unsure of what this is titled, but it is a wild piece and blends incredibly well with the next Johnny Moe piece coming up around our corner here. All right, and then we'll come down into our pedestals down here, which hold 3 additional pieces by Barbara. Let me swing around here so that we can get a good angle on them. So this is the large piece over here on the left is Kamama. And as you can see, this is one giant piece of driftwood that she has found its position and its form in. Then we'll come on over here into a piece that's called Community. And I really like this piece too. She's used some heavy metal found gears that she's procured, and then she's got this tangle of sticks that, I mean, as you look, you can see it really does look like 3 people dancing. You've got 2 individuals here in the center, dancing closely with one another, and then this third individual kind of being thrown around the left side as if they're, you know, entangled in some sort of twirl. All right, and then continuing on, we've got Ocean Dancer, which is her other gear-based piece here. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can get a better view. And again, always a little tough to show off the sculpture and the round in a video online, because they are definitely meant to be viewed and, you know, taken in by the eye in person. So I highly encourage you guys to come on down and check these all out in person. So as you can see, Barbara has a massive range of very different pieces. All right, and moving on to our next wall. We're going to come on over here, and this is the Johnny Mo piece that I was in fact talking about. You can kind of see here in the center, you've got this almost, you know, like burned in figure, almost reduced in this green urn shell. And this is the piece that both Barbara and Johnny thought this piece highly fit as far as the feeling and the emotion that it exhibits. But a very, very vibrant, large piece from Johnny here. And of course on the underside here we've got a Michael Pierce piece. This is incorporating one of the only gourds that we have of his from last year, which he has reinterpreted in a totally new way as a sculpture in the round, hanging with all of these other found object natural materials, fibers and fabrics, all mixed together in this tall rectangular frame. And then you can see here again with Johnny's work, he is very fast with his paint. He gets that form in there, and then he moves on. He's a master at repetition, loves to use pattern and repetition in a lot of his work. All right, and moving on down the line. So this is technically a piece that we have had in here in the past. However, Barbara has reimagined it, and I love what she did with it. She's added some just massive dynamics to this piece by incorporating this pea pod shell onto the back as the wings or arms. She's also incorporated a whole bunch of feathers in here to kind of give it clothing and almost regal collar. Sitting on this beautiful, beautiful piece of black driftwood. This is made out of cactus from the Mojave Desert, if I remember correctly. And it is just a massive and stunning piece. The camera hardly does it justice. This is certainly a piece that you need to come and view in person. I'll get a little closer on this for you guys so that you can really see what we're working with here. Just a fascinating sculpture. All right, we're going to continue moving on our tour here. We're going to come into another Johnny Mollica piece on the wall, mixed with another Michael Pierce piece here on our pedestal. So I wanted to pair these two together because these are the two that were both made with metal. So this is Johnny Mollica's African Space Program. You can see in his vibrant color use of the orange and the green and the blue, it's got this very African kind of color scheme to it. And then he's used these found objects, all of this metal that he's been able to make into this crazy skull with the third eye, just radiating out throughout the entirety of the piece on this diamond. This is a cool piece. I've seen this piece a couple of times now, and if there was a Johnny piece that I could take home, this would certainly be right at the top of my list. And then below it, we've got Michael Pierce's fish sculpture. So this is incorporating a metal fish, very much like the gourd. It's framed in on this rectangular box. And also incorporates a bunch of other natural found objects and fabric objects. It's got some seashells, got some rocks, so a very organic piece here. All right, and we are going to continue onward. I'll give you guys just a quick flashback at what we just viewed. Okay, now we're going to come in over here. This is another Michael piece alongside a couple of Barbara's smaller sculptural works. This is a stitched paper piece with this almost monochromatic theme to it, of just tans and browns and beiges. But I thought that these fit very well with the Barbara sculptures on the underside. And so for Barbara, we've got from left to right the Healer, we've got Celebration, and we've got Angel. Let me zoom in a little bit here so that you guys can see what they look like. I very much like Angel. It's got this play between the magnolia bud, a vertebrae bone, and a nut for the head. Such a cool construction. And here is Celebration, throwing his happy poppy hands up in the air. And there's the Healer. All right, moving on. So this is a slightly different, using a similar technique, but on canvas for Michael Pierce. This is the black canvas A. We've got black canvas A and black canvas B, which is a bit of a separate series, mostly because it's not a paperwork series. It's a little bit darker, using a lot more vibrant tones with this really dark background. And you can see next to it in this paperworks piece, I mean, still has very similar qualities, but the way that these two lay down on the page, the compositions that they create are vastly different. All right, and then we're going to come up on our first and our only Chris Novi piece for this show. She put a lot of time into this piece here, and so this is the main on exhibit piece that we have by Chris. We do have a ton of her prints in 2 different print bins here in the gallery. I certainly encourage you to come down and take a look at her print work. She is a fantastic printmaker, so this is a very different piece than what was expected from Chris, but I love the kind of Barbara and Michael feeling that she put into this. You know, she was able to actually even use, Barbara gave her some different found objects that she was able to put into this piece here. So this is a lighted shadow box. And again, with the return to origins as the theme for the show, you know, this kind of has a very contemporary vibe to it, but in this wooded setting, using all natural and found objects. So very much a return there to kind of the primordial or the ancient, if you will. I love the floor that she got in this box. You can see here, especially on the floor over in the corner down here, you've got different mixed media objects that Barbara has found over the course of her travels, including things also like this shell up here on the upper shelf. We had a piece in here last year that we sold that incorporated a very similar shell. So it's very cool to see kind of Barbara in Chris's work, especially because, again, Chris as a printmaker, you know, she's very good at bringing out the ideas that she wants to when it comes to lithography or an intaglio print, but to shift up course and go towards something that's 3D and mixed media. It's a very, very cool idea. And of course, she's got this lighted internally. But then she's also popped these holes in the top here to still allow some light from the gallery to come in. I think that's one of my favorite parts about this whole thing. Gives it this skylight effect. So a very unique piece here from Chris. And then right below Chris's work, I've got 2 more Barbara sculptures here. Around a little bit more on this fledgling piece here, see if I can show you guys the bird. But you can see it, I mean, this is from a top-down view. It's a little easier on a straight-up view, but this is the bird sitting in its little nest here. All right, and then next we've got a few more Michael Pierce pieces over here. It's the continuation of the series that we had on the other side of Chris's work. All right, and then into 2 more Barbara pieces over here, as well as 1 more, and actually I think our final Michael Pierce piece. And then we've got Lionheart by Barbara on our left, and we've got Spirit Guide over here on our right. Spirit Guide is another very simple piece, but again, one of probably my favorites in the show. I love the grain in the wood and the diagonal motion and this fluid motion that it lends to the arms of the piece, the way that she incorporated this crystal as the face and this very beautiful, smooth stone as its base. This is a very successful piece in my opinion. right, and then to finish out the show, we've got 3 final Johnny Mollica pieces over here. So we've got Skydog, excuse me, not Skydog, we've got Dwayne Allman down here at the bottom, apologize. This is a reproduction. This is a print on canvas. I know it looks like it is the actual painting. This is not. However, this is signed by Johnny Mollica. This is one of only 4 reproductions of this original painting, which was the exact same size. And this is a beautiful reproduction. I've seen a lot of print reproductions, and the printer that he had do this really, really nailed it compared to the original painting. So we've got Dwayne Allman down here, and then up above we've got our Mercy piece. And you can see this is where Johnny ties right in with this whole group. Johnny is just a wonderful artist when it comes to taking found objects. He tends to work with kind of very heavy found objects. His work is very substantial and certainly has a heft to it. So you can see this is just painted on a board, and then he's got this beautiful kind of red velvet in the background. So it's got this kind of oldness feeling to it, even though these are modern constructed pieces. And of course includes the glitter in his border to really give it kind of a showy pop. And Johnny's very good about using a different range of materials to give a very different feeling in the piece, like an actual textural feeling within a piece. So to use the glitter, it really brings in a lot of this light that you just otherwise couldn't get with any sort of pigmented paints or anything like that. And then to use this velvet gives it this softness versus this old piece of wood, which is very rough. And then of course the paint on there to really give you the composition. It's a very, very cool way for him to put together his pieces. And I think you'll be impressed with his very final piece too, because it is built very similarly to this Mercy piece. So on that note, let's walk around the corner and I will show you guys our very final piece of the show. And this is a brand new piece by Johnny Mo. He just brought this one into me today, in fact, so it is as new as it can be. And this is called Love Light. And Johnny definitely likes to take kind of some kind of Christian symbology and put that into a lot of his works to give it this almost spiritual overtone, especially when it comes to historical musicians. So you can see right here in the middle, we've got this kind of crown of thorns over the burning heart, encased in a bed of flowers. And of course put on this raw board right here in the center. Johnny very much likes to use this kind of radial feeling in a lot of his pieces, so he uses these diagonals to give it a ton of motion, and then builds his composition out from the center. But I love the colors in this. It's got a really rustic, almost derelictedness to the color and tone. And of course using these bottle caps and everything else, which is very much a signature of Johnny Mollica. So a very successful new piece. All right, everyone. Well, guys, thank you all so much for joining us on this first Friday. I appreciate all of you that decided to follow along with us with our virtual tour. We are opening the gallery tonight, October 1st, from 6 to 9. So I certainly encourage any of you who found this work interesting to come on down, come say hi. We'll have the artists here in the gallery. So come say hi, ask them about the process on how they do their work. Come check out the work in person. This show will run for the entire month of October, so we've got 5 more weeks of this show. So if you can't make it down tonight, we certainly hope to see you down here throughout the month of October. Thank you guys again. I hope you have a wonderful Friday, and we'll see you next month.